So in this little thing, we can talk about a bunch of nice little fun little normal map facts. And this is the demo that I saw at some point along the way. I think some artist showed me this that made normal mapping click for me. And hopefully this does the same thing for you guys. And I forget the guy who showed me this. So if you showed me this and you're watching this, shoot me an email and I will put your name in this because this is a super beneficial thing for me to learn, or that you taught me. I don't remember who did it, so that doesn't really narrow it down. But the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to just kind of break this guy apart, okay? And I'm doing this to show specific reasons why I'm doing this, okay? So just bear with me on this, okay? And I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to clear all. I'm going to put a single smoothing group down on this guy, okay? This is our low-res mesh, okay? So it's been UV'd, and I haven't given it, I've broken it apart, a bunch of faces, and I've given it a single smoothing group, okay? Box, okay? And now I'm going to make the high-res mesh off of it really quick, edit poly. Do some really fancy hard surface modeling here. Get ready to have your minds blown. Whoa. Okay, now there's another thing we can do here. Look at this. Get ready for this. Some crazy hard surf. Whoa. It's going to be pretty cool. Got some little edge variations and all of that stuff. The future is now. Okay, export this guy. Now, because of the way null works, this is going to generate a cage for us. Okay, so to demonstrate why you need a cage thing, I have to do it inside of Max, which I personally do not like ripping stuff inside of Max. And I know that there are some old school dudes who are diehard. Ripping it in Max is perfect. It's the end all be all. It's slow as hell. F that. Sorry, that's just my opinion on it. Take it or leave it. But there are some things that Max does better than some other things. There's always a caveat for it. Okay, so anyway, let me just reload this. Pre-process current. Okay. Okay. So we have some banding that's happening a little bit on the sides here. But it's not too bad, okay? Now, I'm going to show you another thing here. Now watch, let me show you the normal map on this, so hopefully we can see this. Come over here, Mr. Normal Map, where are you? Okay, keep a visual representation of this guy in your head, okay? I'm going to jump back over into here. Turn all that off. I'm going to use my awesome text tools. Come over here, smoothing groups from UV shells, okay? See that? Export selected. I'm going to do this. And to A/B this, I'm just going to use our handy-dandy snipping tool because otherwise you're just going to have to take my word for it. Just hop on over here into null. I'm going to hit new. The screen's going to get weird. Just take a screenshot of that. Okay? And now I'm going to close this down, open up null yet again. Control B. HR. Hopefully this looks different because sometimes it won't. But it's such a simple object, we may not even see any issues. But you may have to take my word for it. Okay, I can already tell, and you might not be able to tell this based off of the video compression, but I can already tell this is a better looking surface. Okay, you see the difference in the normal maps? So what happened is that when I define a smoothing group as a single smoothing group, it forces the normal map to have to do a bunch of things. It really forces each vector on that normal map to kind of bend and curve depending on where it needs to. If I say, hey, every smoothing group or every unique UV island that you have is a different smoothing group, it makes it much easier on the normal map, okay? And that may not sound like a big deal, but it is a big deal because depending on how the normal map and how your engine reads the normal maps, you can introduce artifacting that you just can't get rid of, okay? And another caveat to make this even more complicated and kind of a slightly bigger pain in the ass is that every engine reads it slightly differently. Torque reads it slightly different than Hammer. Hammer reads it slightly different than Source 2. Source 2 reads it slightly different than Unreal 3. Unreal 3 reads it slightly different than Unreal 4. I believe that's true. The Unreals might be the same throughout everything. Max reads it differently than Maya. Maya reads it differently than Max. Most of the time, though, unless you're dealing with some really weird banding, the minor things that are different between the programs, you can't really tell. Okay, but like in this case, you would be able to see this. This could create banding and artifacts in your engine. So make sure that you break your object, or you assign smoothing groups of your object based off of your smoothing groups. Okay, this is one of the ways that I can 75 to 85% of the time guarantee that most of your normal mapping issues will go away. Outside of that, it's going to probably come down to either overlapping UVs or a messed up cage. Surface geometry can sometimes mess it up, but really not all that often, okay? So let's go back into Max. And since we're all talking about the exciting things that is normal mapping, let's talk about why we need a cage, okay? And I can jump into Photoshop here to first explain this because it tends to work a little better if I have a Wacom pen that I can find to draw out this. Damn it. Every time. They need to make these things glow. File, new. You guys are going to get to see some of my epic box drawing skills. Almost 100 grand in student loan debt, and this is what I got. Edit, fill. Okay. So we have a box. Oop. Ta-da, it's a box. Okay. It's a box that doesn't even line up. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. God damn it, David. New layer, man. Edit, fill. Love Camtasia because it blasts all my Photoshop hotkeys. Okay, here we go. Box. Okay. Okay. Now, when we go to calculate a normal map, we have a ray that shoots off. I'm going to use a different color to be fancy, be more technical. We have a ray that shoots off the surface, okay? Now, this shoots off from pretty much every point, depending on what you're rendering off of, okay? Here, 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 obviously here. Every single point, every direction, okay? I know I'm missing some, but it'll get really messy if I label every single thing, okay? Obviously here, here, and all along the back faces. Okay, now, this might look fine. If you have a high-resolution mesh, that sits around the surface, and it's like, oh, look how cool I am. I'm a high-resolution mesh. Okay, can you already tell what's wrong with this? If these rays, these guys right here, are shooting off the surface in these angles, we're missing this, okay? This is why you need to have a cage, because by default, most of these rippers that do not use cages, they use a search radius. They'll say, oh, shoot so X far off of, off the surface. If you do that, you are going to be missing information, and you will sometimes get artifacts or weird things happening on corners, and particularly those 90-degree corners. You won't get this information, okay? So we have to assign a box, another cage, essentially. And it's actually kind of weird that the program doesn't do this by default, but whatever, I'm not a programmer, so I'm sure there's a reason why. We assign a cage mesh around that box to encompass all of the outlying vectors on these edges, okay? Or lines shooting off the surface, okay? And that allows it to encompass every single surface, okay? So let's see that a little bit practical and something that didn't look like it was drawn by a 3-year-old. Control, we'll copy this guy. And again, turbo smooth him. Look at that, nice high resolution modeling. You see a little spear in there? Let's isolate him down. And we are going to do this, because I'm not feeling like I want to go in and alter that. There we go. Quad jumper to the rescue. And let's actually give this a bit of a bevel so I can See what the hell's going on. Maybe not that much. Yay. Okay. So, and I'm just going to name this HR. Invert my selection and go low. Okay. And we'll name this one low. Yay. End isolation on him. So the little guy, you can't see him, but he's in there. Come on, where are you? There he is. Control 0. This always takes a little bit of time. I don't know. I'm so sorry about the lag, guys. It's Camtasia that's causing this. It's really not particularly great. It's very frustrating. Okay, so we're going to add a normals map in here, 1024, and I'm going to turn off use cage. I'm just going to give it an offset. Okay. Next thing we need to do is we need to say, hey, let's pick the projection asset. There it is. Okay. And again, we are saying do not use that cage. Okay. So it's just going to shoot it off the line or off of the surfaces here. Render. Okay, and of course it's going to be difficult, so dude, come on. Why is it? There it is. Okay, we have some ray misses as well, so let me just adjust that really fast. Actually, I'm not going. Yeah, let me just push the search distance out a little bit. Let's say 30. See if that helps it. Don't show this again. Okay, well, we still have some ray misses, so that's okay though. Let's go ahead and look at the normal map really quick in Photoshop. Okay. So there's that. Now, let's tell this thing to use the cage. Okay, so we have that. And it's going to be using essentially this box. This where is our push value for our cage? Okay, so now it's going to encompass. We're going to render that out. Okay. It also fixed the ray miss, by the way. I don't know if you could see that. So I'm going to A/B this on top. Okay, you see the difference? Okay. And now let's look at those inside of Max. Convert this back to an editable poly. Hit M on the keyboard. Come back down into here, grab the normal bump bitmap. We're going to look at option. Actually, we'll just load them both in so we can swap the things on the fly. There's our normal map. Copy that over. This is in the wrong location. My bad. I'll swap it in the shader in just a second. Normal map. This one. Did I not do that? What the hell? What the hell, Dylan? Alright, swap that. And I will tell, let's find out. Let me get the name of this guy to make sure I didn't do anything stupid. It should be a 1 in one of these names. Detail, DCDFG, KL. This guy. Okay, and I'll set all of these values up to 100 so they can scream. Obviously, we'll turn on the shader as well. Here we go. Okay. Turn you on. Okay, that's without the cage. That's with the cage. Okay. Without the cage, with the cage. Without the cage, with the cage. Okay. Very important. Okay. We also broke up this asset based off of the smoothing groups as well. You can see that here. Every one of those faces has a different smoothing group as well. Okay. Now, if you want to continue, if all of the UV faces are welded, all of those edges are welded together, one smoothing group. Okay. If it's all not, it doesn't have to be contiguous on each side. It's just one UV island. So every UV island would get its own smoothing group. Okay. But this is the thing that made it all clear to me about why you need cages and why you have to, deal with that stuff. You also have to be really careful with warping your cages. Pulling and pushing individual verts can really F things up as well. Okay, so believe it or not, we've just talked about pretty much everything that we're going to deal with a normal map. I'm not going to talk about hand plane or doing any reprojections or any of that kind of stuff because honestly, for what we're going to be doing, we don't need to do that. Some rippers, if you guys don't want to pay for nulled, X-Normal is cool. You can use X-Normal. It's slow, but you can use it. There's been some really good updates on it. And hand plane as well. You can use hand plane. Hand plane is a really good, accurate normal mapping software. You can, use obviously tangent or world space normal maps to help derive more accurate tangent space. You can do that as well as in X-Normal. And if you're curious what that stuff is, you can look it all up online. It's a little bit more advanced than what we're going to talk about in this intro class, but this is the generic, basic way of ripping a normal map. And so, yeah, hopefully you guys learned some, although basic, but pretty useful tips and tricks, okay? So again, just to recap, you're going to want to have, for every UV island, unique smoothing group, or detach the object based off of the UV island is essentially what you're doing when you assign a new smoothing group anyway. You want to make sure you have a cage, and you want to make sure that the cage is encompassing the object, a projection cage. You also want to make sure your low-res asset contains enough geometry detail to maintain and connect to the silhouette. You can remove stuff after the fact. There are cases where you will make assets heavier to deal with the normal map rip and then remove a few edge loops here and there, okay? Now, there's always edge case scenarios where you're going to have to fiddle around with stuff, okay? But, just keep that in mind as well. Really quick, since we're on the topic of this, so I don't have to record another video, let's talk about physically altering the surface normals of your mesh. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier when I said there are lines coming off your mesh. Okay, right now it's defaulting to the actual normal. We can tell it to, we can use it based off of, we can select essentially based off of a face or vertex or a normal. But this is the way Max displays it. We can obviously change the display length, so it's just not useful in either direction. Now, watch what happens when I start to grab these things, okay? I'm like literally just grabbing and altering these surfaces, okay? Now, these things admittedly move a little weird. They don't move necessarily the way that you would think they do, so you kind of have to fiddle around with it, at least inside of Max. Okay, so we can literally go in and alter all of the edges of this mesh depending on what we want to do without a normal map. Okay, there are some instances where you don't need a normal map. There are some instances where if you're just beveling surfaces and that kind of stuff, you do not need to have a normal map. A good example would be, especially because geometry is not nearly as costly as it used to be, is if we needed to go ahead and add a bevel on this edge. Just going to connect this to here, do two of them, pinch that out. Oh, come on, use my hotkeys. Okay, so we want this edge to be beveled, okay? Now there's a couple ways we can do that. Obviously, the reinforcement here will give us the ability to assign here. I'll just do this really quick. To assign different smoothing groups. Do not edge select that. Clear all. Okay. So that is exactly doing just that. We're assigning a smoothing group or we're altering the face normal. Okay. The other thing too as well is that we can go in and use the smoothing groups here to go in and, assign kind of a broad stroke attack to the smoothing groups. You can see that here. We get a nice little bevel there. The other thing as well is obviously we can go in and hand manipulate some of these. Okay. You got to be careful with this though, guys. It's one of those things that it can be really powerful, but it can also be a huge pain in the ass and can be a huge time sink if you're not careful. But you can obviously go in and alter those normals as well, okay? So you don't always need to create a high resolution mesh depending on what you're doing, okay? In some cases, especially if you're doing stuff for VR, you're going to have to rely pretty heavily on geometry. You're going to have to push your geometry higher than what you typically would, and you're going to try and save space and other things, so you might not use normal maps. It's very possible that you will not be using normal maps, especially if you're doing a lot of sci-fi stuff, unless you're just doing, broad surface detailing stuff, okay? So again, that's hand manipulating normal maps as well, okay? There's a bunch of really cool info out there on the web if you want to see that. Where is this? Come on, Max, where are you? Where is that? Separate by. Let me just find an option really quick. Okay, I just wanted to show I just wanted to turn this option on so I could actually just see the faces I'm selecting. If you turn on this preview selection, obviously you can go ahead and select based off of whatever you're mousing over inside of Max. It's pretty handy, but again, it's not 100% perfect. I like to keep it on sub-objects and just cycle through manually what I'm after, but this allows you to see the faces and stuff that you're selecting. Anyway, that should be a pretty good indication of what you can do with your normal maps. You guys should have a pretty good understanding at this point of how to basically use normal maps and rip them. Now, the thing that's going to make normal mapping easier for you guys is doing a bunch of assets. The way this demo is kind of constructed is I kind of give you guys key points of kind of interest in, like, design elements inside of games. Like, so we talked about materials. We have a introduction to the UI inside of Unreal. Talk about normal mapping. We're going to talk about Quixel, which is primarily what I'm going to be using for this. We're not going to do a deep dive into Substance or anything like that. It's just there's too much content at this point. And I have like 3 days before I got to get this out to you guys. So we're a little limited in that. If there's a request for more of an in-depth look at Substance, shoot me an email and I'll add it. It's not a big deal. But after I go through and give that demo, we have a making of section that shows one of the scenes that I made. And then I'm going to take all of the Megascan stuff. I'm going to build like a little beach scene or something out of it just to kind of show you guys the material functions, the material layering, and that kind of stuff. So you'll have basically 2 reference sets of content that you can reference and build off of, which is going to be really nice and useful for you guys, I think. So we'll just keep on moving right along. And yeah, this should conclude the normal map section.